Hi again. I'm the director for New Zealand registered not-for-profit charitable trust Common Knowledge. And our mission statement, or whatever you call it, is that individuals, families, groups, societies should be able to use any and all types of health care at the same time. And I'm going to keep repeating this in all of these videos because it's important for me that you know who I am when I'm talking about this very sensitive issue of COVID long haul symptoms. So the reason our trust does that is because I've worked around the world. I'm a naturopath. In the early 1970s, I and hundreds of mothers and fathers developed all of the birth and birth coaching skills that we use in all births, because 100% of pregnant women are going to give birth one way or another, and it's an activity each woman does no matter where she births or what happens, and it's global, and we're faced with another global issue, this virus. I got COVID in March of 2020. I have symptoms that are hard to explain. They couple with my genetic metabolic disorder, and so you're always trying to balance this stuff. And the medical profession now is doing its best, and we come from a trust, common knowledge, that focuses on what we can do for ourselves. And there are certain principles about this. And one is just every little bit helps. That was the conclusion of a BBC researcher who went around the world to find out why people in some countries wear masks all the time. They just believe every little bit helps. And it's really important that all of you know that everything that you can do for yourself is every little bit helps. And we have sort of three options here. We can hope and wait for the medical profession to solve this, sort of like what my generation did with polio, or what people are still doing with malaria, or what they did with AIDS or Ebola. Or two, we can just do nothing. Or three, every little bit helps. We can do for ourselves. In the first two videos of this, when I posted, I attach the protocol our trust set out for when you feel unwell, and continue to use that protocol. I can't attach it to the YouTube, so you've got to search for these videos and find it and continue to apply those principles, which is to gargle with warm salt water if you have a sore throat, clean your nose out so it drips out the other side if you have a stuffed nose, drink 3 to 5 liters of warm oral rehydration that you make up yourself. All of this you can find online, slightly salty, slightly sweet. You want to keep yourself hydrated. If your body feels sticky, keep washing it off. And so today I'm going to talk about diarrhea. Yesterday I talked about constipation. Diarrhea is not the opposite of constipation. So there are elements of diarrhea that are very beneficial. If we eat something that doesn't agree with us, the body wants to get it out. It vomits sometimes, and sometimes it gets diarrhea. And we want that to happen. The same way with fevers. A lot of people try to reduce fevers. But fevers are the ways that our immune system is fighting off something that's invaded it. So having a fever isn't wrong. It's having a high fever that can be damaging. Having a fever isn't a problem. Vomiting isn't a problem. Diarrhea isn't a problem unless it's extreme. And on the bottom of this, Kaiser Permanente, that has a wonderful homeopathic thing, has homeopathics for diarrhea. So you can look below and see what might suit you. You can get homeopathics off of Amazon, or if you live in countries where they're available, get them where they're available. However, if you have diarrhea, really the most important thing is that you hydrate yourself. And that's the slightly sweet, slightly salt. If you can use a salt that doesn't have iodine, great. If that's all you have, it's what you have. Any kind of sweetener, but not artificial sweeteners, any sweetener. And slightly to taste, which means that when you drink the 3 to 5 liters over a period of time, you shouldn't feel that it's too salty or too sweet. And how should you drink? You should drink more than sipping, because our body does better with hydration when we're drinking a quantity. How do we know we've drunk enough? Our tummy tells us. It just goes, enough. Which brings us to talking to your body. I read a lot of the long haul posts, and we haven't been taught really to have a conversation with our body. And at this point, we go back to the three things. Either we can wait and hope the doctors can solve this, we can do nothing, or we can do every little bit helps for our body. And talking to our body and finding out what our body needs is really, really, really important. Even if we're parents and we have demands on us, even if we're working and we have demands on us, we can still talk to our body. And this is what athletes do. In other words, if we're running and we're starting to get fatigued, our body is telling us something. And if we're using common sense, we just slow down a little bit. Doesn't mean we stop. It doesn't mean we feel we failed. It doesn't mean we feel that we can't get better. It just means that our body is talking to us and we pay attention to it. So we need to talk to our body. As I've said in other videos, my experience in working with pregnancy, with 100% of pregnant women are going to give birth, that I do not talk politics, religion, or diet. So, and because I have a genetic metabolic disorder, I developed blockages in my heart from being a vegetarian. Not because I was a vegetarian, because I have trouble metabolizing B vitamins. So any diet would have been problematic until I began to know how to deal with this. And it was every little bit helps over a period of time. I also want to talk about the ups and downs of things. I hear that a lot. I felt better, now I feel worse. I'm screwed. No, you're not. This is where it's really important from what I'm going to say, and I'm going to say this as a naturopath, I'm going to say it as a person who does this, and I'm going to say this as the director of the trust. It is really important that we recognize episodes. When we're sick and we go to the medical profession, there's nothing wrong with this, so don't take it that way. We get medications that we're told to take regularly, every 4 hours, every 6 hours, every 12 hours, once a day. So they are not necessarily connected to the symptoms that we have. When you work on the premise of every little bit helps, it's important that you pay attention to your symptoms. So people do not have diarrhea 100% of the time. It's an episode. It can be after you eat, right after you eat, or hours after you eat. It can be more in the morning, more in the afternoon, several times a day. Everything, same way with constipation, same way with every issue that all of us are experiencing. They are episodes. And it is important that you then realize that your goal is to reduce the intensity. So it's okay to have loose bowels. As long as you're rehydrating yourself, it's fine. But having diarrhea that's tiring you, that's causing you to be dehydrated, that's an intense episode. So you want to reduce that. You want to reduce how long these episodes last. So if you're running to the toilet constantly, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, you want to reduce how long that lasts, and you want to increase the space in between before you have another episode. And this will be true of all of the symptoms. And you're going to hear this from me ad nauseum, really, honestly, because in the 50 years I've worked as a naturopath with people with severe disabilities, with athletic performances, with pregnancy and childbirth, and everything in between, it is all about an episode. In pregnancy, in childbirth, it's a contraction, right? And so in sports, it's often feeling uncomfortable or not knowing how to get past a certain bar of performance. With disabilities, most people with disabilities know they're not going to get better, but there are certain things that are irritating them. Long haul means that it's become chronic. And as I've said before, and as I'll talk about again, they're realizing this is not just a respiratory disorder. It enters our body through our nose and our mouth, and that's why it's really important that you find access to our protocol and understand how we can help our bodies. We have to help our body. Our mind has to help our body. And when we say bad things about our body, then our body hears those bad things. We need to help our body. So if we have diarrhea, then we need to say to our body, I'm going to do things to help you. How do I help my body if I have diarrhea? The most important thing is that you hydrate yourself. And hydrating yourself is not coffee, it's not tea, it is not soda, it is not water. It is an oral rehydration formula. And that's important for you to understand, that you need to get the fluid into your system so that it absorbs into your system. So if you have cramps with diarrhea, then look below and see if you can find a homeopathic remedy. If you can't find a homeopathic remedy, or you don't want to take a homeopathic remedy, which is fine, then you might be comfortable taking some magnesium, which reduces cramping. But taking lots of magnesium loosens your bowels. So you just want to take a little bit, which brings me to the other thing about self-help. When you are learning to help yourself and you say, I'm going to do X, Y, or Z. So for example, I read a lot. I want to go exercise now. And then you go out and do too much, right? So what you want to do whenever you're self-helping is say to your body, and I do this all the time, and I teach people how to do this. What do I want to do now? That's the question I ask. What do I want to do now? And when I ask that question, my body will often give me a response. If it says, I don't know, then I go, okay, then I go about my business. But if my body says, I'm thirsty, then I go and make up a warm drink, warm soup, warm oral rehydration. I drink until my stomach says to me, that's enough. If I exercise, I say to my body, is this the speed you'd like to go at? Often my body will say, I'd like you to go slower. Then I go slower. My body sometimes will say, it's okay, go faster. I go faster. Right? So when you talk to your body, because our mind and our body are inextricably linked, we are both. And so we should be having a good conversation with our body. If you have diarrhea and you feel that it's not normal, meaning you didn't have it prior to COVID, or it's gotten worse since COVID, and you're feeling depleted and drained, the first thing is really important that you really get involved in oral rehydration. It's absolutely important that you do that without a doubt, okay? You have to rehydrate. Down below is also a list of the different gut health bacteria that has been shown to be helpful with diarrhea, and it's very important that you replace your gut health when you have diarrhea. How do you do that? Fermented foods. Many of us grew up with sauerkraut, right? Some of us of Asian descent grew up with misos. Fermented foods, they're all over the place. You can Google fermented foods and make something. Yogurt. Look on the back of yogurts. They have bacteria in them. It's a fermented food. Kefirs are fermented. It's important that we replace positive bacteria in our body. Now, there are 3 types of positive bacteria. There's a scaffold that's are what are called Ig factors, capital I, small g. Then there's probiotics, which attach to the scaffold. Prebiotics, which attach to the scaffold, and the probiotics, which munch on the prebiotics. So sometimes we have to go to a store, go to a health food store, go to a pharmacy, look online, look on Amazon, I don't know, and try to find these things or make them, right? There are lots of opportunities for you to make fermented foods. Bread is fermented. They take yeast, put it in warm water, put some sugar in it, put some flour in it, put it in a warm place, and it ferments. So all of these things that we can do, no matter who we are, what level we're dealing with it. So some of the things for diarrhea is a food. Told you I wasn't going to talk about diet, but ripe bananas are very good. Even fiber is very good. But as I said in the constipation, when you start with fiber, you take a tiny pinch and put that into your oral rehydration, because the water goes to the ground flaxseed, which is, for me, better than psyllium. I found psyllium to be sticky, and so it didn't suit well. And so a small amount of ground flaxseed into some warm oral rehydration then gets the water to go into the fiber, and that then goes into the intestines. And it's important that we continue to put bulked fiber into our intestines when we have diarrhea, because sometimes our cramping occurs because we don't have that there. So our intestines is trying to push something out when there isn't a lot of fecal matter in there. When there is more fecal matter, then the bowel movements come out more shaped rather than that watery, splattery diarrhea. So you can take a small amount of magnesium that can help with the cramping if you have, or read the homeopathics below. Also, hottie, warm hot water bottle on your belly if you have diarrhea. If you do have an episode of diarrhea, it's really, really important that you hydrate right away. It's really important right away that you hydrate. So I'm going to continue to talk about each of the symptoms. You may find these interesting or boring. It's okay. This is something I have to do. I spent 25 years working behind the back end of our trust and the birthingbetter.org. And when COVID came out, our trust put out a COVID quick birth skills course, online course, because pregnant women were being told around the world, you can't have support people with you in the hospital. And so we are continuing for 50 years to grow a self-learning, skilled birthing population. Then I got sick, and through our trust, put out that protocol and used it. Why? Because I didn't think I was going to cure myself. I didn't think I was going to eliminate the virus. I was going to do every little bit helps to help my body deal with this new virus and throw off the metabolic waste. I was going to do what I could to reduce the viral load in my system and to help my body continue through the process, however long it takes. After I did all the research in January and February 2020, in May it began to be clear that this is a blood vessel disease and that people often have white fibers in their lungs or microclots in throughout their body. So we're going to deal with all of those symptoms. What I've encouraged all of you to do is to look at all of these things as episodes. Make a list of your symptoms, group them together. If fatigue and headaches go together, group them together. If cramping in your belly and diarrhea go together, group them together. And then look at them as episodes. We can't say, I have diarrhea all the time. That's a generalization. You can say, I have 10 episodes of diarrhea a day. That's realistic. The question then becomes, do you know what is causing this? In other words, have you just eaten something? In which case the diarrhea comes after you've eaten something. In which case now you know that you need to put warm oral rehydration into your system with a small amount of ground flaxseed to give you the bulk. If you're using other bulking agents, that's okay. Do what you do. See if that helps. So when you lump the symptoms together into episodes, then you want to be specific. If you want to be exercising more, because many of us were athletes and we felt more fatigued after this, then we are back in training. We need to do several things. Ask our body, what do we want to do now? Do I want to do stretching? Do I feel like I want to do a few push-ups? And then our body goes, that's enough. That's fine. That's enough. And then you can say to your body, let me know when you want to do more. Okay? I want to go run. My body says, I'm too fatigued. How do we know it's too fatigued? Because our breathing becomes irregular or we feel breathless. Doesn't mean we shouldn't walk. It just means we need to work with our body and slow down. So we want to slow down until we're not breathless. If we get very fatigued after we've exercised or very fatigued after diarrhea, warm oral rehydration is really, really important. I can tell by pretty much all of the comments on the long haul symptoms, everybody is dehydrated. You need to understand that our body functions best when we take a volume of warm oral rehydration into our body at one time. And our stomach will tell us when we've had enough, and we go back a few hours later. Also, our lips. Lips are dry, we are dehydrated. If we pull the skin up on our hand or on our arm and it stays up in a lump, we're dehydrated. Our body is trying to get rid of this virus and the metabolic waste and using our immune system. It has to throw it off, the metabolic waste. We are helping our body by being very hydrated. We are helping our body by being very hydrated. When we are not hydrated, our body becomes more toxic because the waste products stay in our system. The waste products come out through our breathing, through crying, through spit, through sweat, through urine, through poops. We help our body by being very hydrated. So I am going to keep on doing this. I do this because I am absolutely compulsed to do it. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment on these posts. Please share them with other people, particularly the protocol. You can always write a comment on this on YouTube. If you want the protocol sent to you, you need to give me a way to send it to you, because I have been asked by the administrators on the long haul groups not to keep posting it. So you can search for these videos in the long haul groups and find the protocol. Print it off, share it, pass it around. Please, if you have anything to say that you're uncomfortable with, please say it in a gracious manner. We are dealing with what's called social media. It is not a place for us to be mean to each other, or to be rude to each other, or to attack one another. It is a place for social engagement and in-depth conversations. So thank you for listening. I'm going to check this off my list. I have 21 symptoms. You can always write yours down, and I'm going to try to keep addressing one at a time in each video. So see you later. Take care.